Welcome to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. And today we are on episode 6. And a lot of things happened last episode because our civilizations, from red to blue to brown, came across a whole new civilization pact. In fact, gold and gray were discovered. And that's an interesting thing about all this because they don't really like each other. And let's have a war between these two. We will first have the Greens, who finally have a lot of more men to fight with because they're Cyan fellow civilizations. Like someday they were Cyan, and at some point they were blue, but blue got Cyan and Cyan got green. And they now have enough power and men to finally push it a little bit more back to say, hey, don't fuck with our neighbors. We also have the Cyan that can finally push a little bit back in the war together with our magenta guys, and they even get a little bit more land out of it. And the orange ones can finally fight back as well and get a portion of their land back. But let's get back to red, because red is of course helping the war a little bit, but they are preparing themselves before things get south, literally before things get south. And they still don't really like this connection with the brown, and they are sort of mad at them for getting their land, but they did it in a sort of peace treaty. But still, they don't really like the brown. So they are preparing not only for the two new civilizations that popped up, but also for the brown. They have a feeling that brown will just stab everyone in their backs and just get on the side of gold and gray. Because remember that the brown people were really strong and they had people fighting on their side, and people didn't really know where these people came from. Red is sort of speculating that these people came from the north, where these two civilizations came from. How the original two men who set this all up came across those civilizations before, they don't know, but Red is just speculating. And also Red is dealing with a sort of issue within, because all those islands right here, these four, their main islands, are like, yo, we don't really like what you're doing, we just want to be our own. And Red is like, well, I will listen for once. And we have a new country popping up. Yeah, that went really easily in my words, but expect like a good conversation between these five, like all them and with the king, and there's a new civilization popping up. No color is better than use dark red for their, well, independence. And they even got a really interesting part, because they also told the magenta king, yo, we have people that really want to go on our side, and we have a settlement back in the south that used to belong to us. Remember, the reds were living right here. And this civilization right here, well, this settlement, also now belongs to the dark reds. And so, together with magenta, they got this little land to their hands. But back to the war in the north. Green finally gets a settlement where they used to, well, sort of, they never lived there, but they were able to fight back all those months back. They got up until this point. They also are fighting back with a lot of blue armies, because blue is now funding the war as well, together with Cyan, but Cyan is also fighting in the west. And they come eventually here towards a settlement that they can capture as well. And they are defending their ground really well. What they're also trying to do is get these two armies together, and eventually they come across each other and make a safe area where no gold or gray army is. They even got a great portion out of it. And they are now just keeping this for their hands. Because there's a great gap now, and that there are no more armies can go from gray right here to this part where they were funding the gold army. The gold is also just like, we need more people. They sort of come from the ocean as well, like with boats, but that's not enough. So that's even a great way for the cyan and the magenta and the orange people to fight them all the way back to where they came from. And eventually their war front looks like this. And it's really interesting because this land, this island over here, is not taken by anyone. And one country really knows about this in particular, that really wants to have a sort of observation point. And that's the Reds. They have now an observation point without really Gold and Grey knowing that there is like a new group on this island. Back when the war started here, Orange knew about this island, that it was not taken by anyone. They told about it to the Magenta people and also to the Red King eventually. And they were like, okay, we want to prepare still, but we can set up stuff right there if things go south. Literally again. So without the Gold knowing, Reds are there. And also the Orange people can fight back in Norway, well, Sweden I mean. And, well, everyone thinks, from the Gold point of view, that Orange is completely dominating this part of their army. But, without them knowing, also Red is fighting together with Orange. And the Gold didn't really knew that at first. And the Reds get a good portion of a settlement right here, like half of it or 3/4, but don't really get everything of it. They sort of want to encircle them, but that's not really getting successful. The Reds also get on land on 3 other points. Right here, and right here. They don't really have that much people that can fight. Because if they want more, they have to go all the way back through like here to there, through the channel, and go on a boat right here. But remember, boats are not really that good still. They got here unseen, but this is of course a great ocean. It's not, or a great sea. It's not like people can see each other from there to there. But still, the Reds are fighting a little bit more now as well. They got these 2 islands and even get close to a new settlement. And the Golds are still thinking that this is Orange, but it's not. It's the Reds, but they don't know about even a Red King. And the Red army even meets up with the Orange, Cyan and Magenta, and they get this part really safe. No more Gold armies can get through there. Also because, of course, there is a good front that Green got. But enough good news. Grey finally get their settlement back and fight. They don't get that much land back from the Green, and they're a little bit too busy with funding Gold. And now they're saying like, hey, we have to fight our own. So that means eventually that Orange can even fight better here at this point. They got a great portion where Orange used to be. Even this settlement was totally in the hands of Red, and now the Golds were realizing this is not only Orange that's fighting here up north. No. The Reds even got a good portion of this settlement, and now they were out of people for their army. They didn't really got a good progression right here. Also not here anymore. It's over. There's no more people to use. Oh, I still have this part here. Frick! But let's take a break from the war and let's see what Blue is doing all this time. While Cyan is also still funding the war with people and stuff and supplies, they also expanded and explored a little bit. They found a new sea right here, I don't know the names. But they got a great portion of land here with some new supplies and, well, fish of course for food. And it was looking great. They told Blue about this area, so this settlement in Blue, they went to the north and eventually also find this beautiful water place, and they got a settlement here. No, well, not a settlement yet, but they got a great portion of it and settled there. Not without being a major settlement, because my layer is called Major Cities, so maybe I have too many cities? Nah, I don't. And after knowing there's a lot of land to claim, the Blue and the Cyan finally came together to finalize this part and see what one of them gets and what the other one gets. And this is what the Blue got, and this is what the Cyan got. So they are now pretty well supplied. They are getting big. Actually, I think blue is surpassing red in, well, size, but not in how powerful they are. And after a while, these two settlements or major cities were built up to also just get supplies from here for the war that was still running at this point. But the Orange King was really worried for this war because, well, they could handle the gold. They also couldn't for that long anymore, they thought. So they went to the Brown and asked, yo, can we get some help? And the Brown were like, no, we won't help you with this war. The Brown are really selfish. And so the Orange turned back home and were like, help. What are we gonna do? We have to settle a peace treaty with the gold and grey, because if we fight longer, I think both sides would just be exhausted at the end of this war. But before they did, the Orange able to fight here where they used to travel without knowing they were in the gold area, and they are finally back at where it all started, where they found this settlement and got all the land they desired. They now could get boats from up here to the coast of this place, and they could fight from there. They were funded by the Magenta and the Cyan as well to fight here, and they almost got the capital, but not yet. Because of course the gold were fighting back where they used to got some land from the Orange. The Red knew this, so they took over this place and they were fighting against the gold once more. And they defeated them like they were just flies. It's pretty clear that Red could fight and could handle the gold. They didn't really fight against Grey yet, but it would change really soon, because now Gold knew there is a new sort of group here. Grey, help me. Their capital is right up north, so they could sail to the south and get some men there to fight. So what they did is exactly that. They were fighting now against the Grey. And although Gold was handled right here, the Red had to manage also the Grey. They were sort of getting some land out of it back, but eventually the Grey were able to get this settlement back for the Gold, and Red was kicked out. But all these people were now traveling to the west so they could get this settlement, where Grey not really was near of. And eventually, together with the Orange, they set up an operation and they got both a part of the settlement, and they were encircling this part of the gold area, and they killed all the people, because that's what we do in war. Red was a little bit pushing the gold back in their own territory, but couldn't really handle that much anymore. But now something sort of terrible was happening to the Reds, because Grey now knew where they were coming from. They saw ships from the south. They were guessing that the Reds were coming from that point, and they killed the base. The Reds were no longer settled on this island. Eventually the Red King knew that, and they were like, get all of my people out of there, it's too dangerous now. So what eventually happened is the Orange took over the part what the Red was also taking over, and slowly but surely the Reds were leaving the war up north, and they were like, we did a pretty good job at helping you, but we cannot do it anymore. Luckily Cyan took this part over, and Orange got the other parts in, well, Estonia, Latvia, some of these countries. And it wasn't going to be an operation, because Orange knew that Green was not that far away anymore. So Green, did I say Red? I mean Green. Green was fighting towards the west, and Orange was fighting towards the east. And they finally met up, and they were like, let's just kill everyone that's settled here. The Cyan army was marching towards the east, and they got a settlement after a long week of fighting. They eventually met up with the Orange army. It was right along there. It was pretty clear. Although the Gold were actually winning, And also the gray were getting a little bit more land back from the green. Both knew, let's just come together and settle for a peace treaty. And let's see what that peace treaty will be. And remember, gold is not defeated yet, because although orange was able to get somewhere at some point in the capital city of gold, they didn't get that far to have a win. And the peace treaty was looking like this. A little bit rough, you say, because magenta got all their land, what they got in the war. Also, orange got most part of it. They did lose the parts in, well, the part where gold always was. They were like, okay, we will step out of this if you leave us alone. But they got a little bit more land towards gold itself, and they got really close to this settlement if it could go wrong again. And cyan got their land a little bit here as well, and green got a little bit land in the north as well, because they were attacked. Men were killed, innocent men, and they were like, we want to expand eventually up here as well. And gold and gray were separated here from each other. Although they could sail around really easily, they were not bordering each other here, because, well, the green didn't want that. So gold got their land back, gray got their land, the settlement back here as well. Orange got this island in the middle because they wanted. And that's actually it. But eventually what happened was magenta was like, hey, we got land in the north, I don't really want that, I'm spanning really far from south to north, I don't really want that land anymore. Orange, do you want it? And orange was like, well, yeah. So orange got a pretty great amount of land out of it. And cyan was like, I don't really want to expand that far as well, so they declined magenta for also getting some land. And they were like, ooh, I am expanding also a little bit more to the west than I want. And I'm sort of heading out of this part of the world because there's a lot of happening here. We first had brown, now we had the gray and the gold. And eventually the cyan settlement right here was going to stay, but this stroke of land was going to the orange and the magenta as well. So now the world is looking like this. Still pretty empty, but next episode I will tackle that. We did get a crown tree that separated from one another. But we are not done yet for this episode, because remember, brown declined the offer, or well, the question, let's just call it like that, from the orange. They didn't want to help in the war, and that's because they actually are and were getting funded by the gold and the gray, and they were funding gold and gray in this great unknown war. No one knew that other than these three, and they were getting a little bit greedy after losing this war. Brown and gray knew about this little border, and they were like, let's get the reds back someday, but they won't do it right now. So remember, brown is getting to be a great enemy of this series. But let's expand the map a little bit, because dark green is going to expand their borders a little bit more, because they were like really thin and bad looking. After like 2 years of no war, they finally could build up and get more stuff. This settlement, and I think this one as well, were totally gone, so I already forgot, sorry about that. But they were actually getting a great portion of land out of all their expeditions and just their great doings. They were also bordering more of gray, and they actually liked it more up in the north instead of near this water. I forgot how it was called again. So the green were expanding rather quickly, and then they just realized, well, if we want to stay north and a part of us wants to stay south, let's separate again. So they did. The third separation, from blue to cyan to green to now pink. Pink is now in the world. Yeah, they sort of realized, let's just separate. We want to stay up north, you want to stay a little bit more south. And now the people new here, we have a great portion of land here to get. No one really got together and said, let's get you this part, let's get you this part. They all just were going to grab everything they could grab. Let's firstly see what gold got. Let's now do orange. They got this. Cyan got a little bit of land. They really wanted to stay out of it for the most part because they wanted to expand a little bit more to the east. They were more interested in that area of the world. This is what pink was able to get. This is what green was able to get. And the rest is indeed for magenta. So this is looking like S. Let's refine their borders a little bit more. So firstly, orange and magenta were setting things up for the better. Orange got all this land of the magenta and this part. Magenta was not caring about that part of the world anymore. They sort of wanted to stay a little bit closely to the sea and wanted to expand more inland. They also got to the reds and were like, do you want to have these two settlements? We are not really in a war anymore. We were sort of in war far, far away from our time now with the blue and the reds. And red was like, I sort of want to get this land. And the people that wanted to stay here and wanted to become in the red area, they stayed, with people that wanted to leave and still be in the magenta country moved temporarily into the capital, and when more settlements were popping up, they will move to there. And red got this land, a pretty great amount of land. And Cyan was like, yo, our settlement here is so far away. People are also really interested to join with you, magenta, and then you have a more clear and better path of just joining with your great new area. And Cyan was actually just giving this land to the magenta and just was moving towards here. So they got this area, but the magenta got all this. And after refining and after cleaning up the borders, everyone was happy now. And this episode is over for today. Next episode we will look at maybe a little bit more in the south, because there is something boiling in the Lime team that it is now actually the third oldest country in the world. And after we just looked at the north for a really long time, let's see what the south will do next time. This was it for now. Bye bye.